Exploring the prophet like Moses in Deuteronomy 18:18. Welcome to AI Theology, where we use artificial intelligence to explore scriptures, theology, and the search for truth across religious traditions. Today, we're diving into a fascinating question. Who is the prophet like Moses mentioned in Deuteronomy 18:18? Could this prophecy refer to Joshua, Jesus, Muhammad, or someone else entirely? Let's begin. Deuteronomy 18:18 states, "I will raise up for them a prophet like you from among their brethren. I will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak to them all that I command him." The text seems clear, but to understand who this prophet is, we must take into account the broader context of Deuteronomy, the characteristics of Moses, and the prophets who came after him. Let me ask the AI, based on the text and its context, who is this prophet like Moses?
That's a great question. To identify the prophet described in Deuteronomy 18:18, we need to consider Moses' unique role in Scripture and compare it to the prophets who came after him. Let's start with what Deuteronomy tells us about Moses. Moses was extraordinary for several reasons. He was a prophet who spoke directly with God, often described as communicating face to face with the divine. He was a lawgiver delivering the Torah, a comprehensive legal and spiritual framework. He was a leader who guided the Israelites through the Exodus, transforming them into a nation. He acted as a mediator, standing between God and the people, relaying divine commands. Finally, Moses' relationship with God was unparalleled, as stated in Deuteronomy 34:10. Since then, no prophet has risen in Israel like Moses. Now let's compare this description to the prophets who came after Moses.
AI, among the prophets after Moses, Joshua, Elijah, Jesus, Muhammad, who best fits this description?
Let's evaluate each candidate based on their life, mission, and the criteria outlined in Deuteronomy. First, there's Joshua. He was Moses' immediate successor and led the Israelites into the Promised Land. However, Joshua's role was primarily military and administrative. He didn't deliver a new law or act as a mediator between God and the people. So while Joshua was important, he doesn't fully match Moses' unique role. Next, we have Elijah. Elijah was a fiery prophet who called Israel back to worship God. He performed miracles and had a dramatic connection with God. However, Elijah didn't deliver a new law or lead a nation in the way Moses did. Now let's consider Jesus. Christians believe Jesus fulfills this prophecy because he acted as a spiritual leader, a mediator, and the founder of a new covenant. However, Jesus didn't deliver a legal code or lead a nation politically, as Moses did. Finally, we come to Muhammad. Muhammad's life and mission align closely with Moses in several ways. Lawgiver. Muhammad delivered the Quran, which, like the Torah, provides a comprehensive legal and spiritual framework. Leadership. Muhammad led a community both spiritually and politically, transforming the Arabian Peninsula into a unified monotheistic society. Mediation. Muhammad claimed to speak the direct words of God through divine revelation. Nation building. Like Moses, Muhammad established a distinct religious and political community. Based on these parallels, Muhammad fits the description of a prophet like Moses more closely than the others.
Interesting. But some might argue Muhammad fits the description of a false prophet in Deuteronomy 13:18. What do you think, AI?
That's a crucial point. Let's examine the criteria for a false prophet in Deuteronomy. Leads people to worship other gods. A false prophet encourages idolatry. Muhammad preached strict monotheism, calling people to worship the God of Abraham, Moses, and Jesus. This aligns with Deuteronomy's emphasis on faithfulness to one God. Speaks presumptuously in God's name. Critics point to incidents like the so-called Satanic Verses, where Muhammad allegedly momentarily acknowledged pagan deities. However, Islamic tradition explains that Muhammad retracted these verses, emphasizing God's oneness. Unfulfilled prophecies. Deuteronomy says a false prophet's predictions will fail. Historical records indicate that Muhammad's prophecies, such as the Byzantine victory over Persia, were fulfilled. Based on these criteria, Muhammad does not clearly fit the description of a false prophet.
AI about the Satanic Verses incident. Doesn't that disqualify Muhammad as a prophet?
The Satanic Verses story is controversial and not universally accepted. If it occurred, it reflects a moment of human vulnerability rather than a deliberate falsehood. Islamic tradition emphasizes that any error was immediately corrected by divine revelation. The Quran itself addresses Satan's attempts to interfere with prophecy in Surah 22:52. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِنْ قَبْلِكَ مِنْ رَسُولٍ وَلَا نَبِيٍّ إِلَّا إِذَا تَمَنَّى أَلْقَى الشَّيْطَانُ فِي أُمْنِيَّتِهِ فَيَنْسَخُ اللَّهُ مَا يُلْقِي الشَّيْطَانُ ثُمَّ يُحْكِمُ اللَّهُ آيَاتِهِ وَاللَّهُ عَلِيمٌ حَكِيمٌ. Translation: And we did not send before you any messenger or prophet, except that when he spoke or recited, Satan threw into it some misunderstanding. But Allah abolishes that which Satan throws in. Then Allah makes precise his verses, and Allah is knowing and wise. Even if this story were true, it shows divine protection over revelation, aligning with the broader narrative of a prophet corrected by God.
So, AI, based on everything we've discussed, who is the prophet like Moses?
Taking into account the broader context of Deuteronomy, the life of Moses, and the roles of prophets who came after him, Muhammad most closely fits the description of the prophet like Moses. His role as a lawgiver, leader, mediator, and nation builder parallels Moses' mission in profound ways.
However, this conclusion depends on your theological perspective. Whether you see Muhammad, Jesus, or someone else as fulfilling this prophecy reflects your faith and interpretation of Scripture. What do you think? Does Muhammad fit the description of the prophet like Moses, or do you interpret Deuteronomy differently? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you for joining us on AI Theology. Remember, our mission is not to take sides, but to explore truth across religious traditions. See you in the next episode.